So I recently ran into this combo on Magic Arena. I was playing against a green-red deck with this combo in it, and it seemed really cool to me. So I took these two cards and adapted them into a budget mono-red deck and have been playtesting it for a bit, and after playtesting I can confirm this combo is cool. So with these two cards you have an infinite combo which you can play in Pioneer or even an Explorer on Arena if you'd like, in just one color. This is Birgi, God of Storytelling, plus Grinning Ignis. This combo has been kind of a known quantity for a while now, I think, but I'd never really seen it in action, and there are actually some new cards from the past few sets that help it out quite a lot. So what you do is, if you have both of these cards in play, you can get an infinite number of creature spells that you can cast, as well as an infinite number of enter the battlefield triggers. Because with Birgi, it says whenever you cast a spell, add red. Until end of turn, you don't lose mana as steps and phases end. As this boast thing, but that really doesn't matter. So if you have Birgi in play, you can have Grinning Ignis out as well. It says pay a red, return Grinning Ignis to its owner's hand. Add colorless red, activate only as a sorcery. So what you would do is you have these out, you pay a red, return Grinning Ignis to your hand, cast it, you get a red, which then you can use to use its ability, return it, cast it, return it, cast it, and so on an infinite number of times. So now that you have this 2-card infinite combo, the question is, how do you use this to win? So that's what we're going to take a look at right now. There are 3 main win conditions. 2 of them come out of Streets of New Capenna. The first one here is Witty Roastmaster, quite simple. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, this does 1 damage to each opponent. So if you have this combo going and this in play, you can just ping your opponent to death. That works quite fine. The other one is Devilish Valet. It has Trample and Haste. It's a 1/3. It says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, double Devilish Valet's power until end of turn. This one I think is the most fun because you can get this a ridiculously high number quite quickly. So you have this out, you just get infinite enter the battlefield triggers, which triggers this an infinite number of times. On Arena, you're going to run into some problems because if you do this too many times, you'll start to time out, and if the numbers get too high, the program might become a bit wonky for you, but you could get this in the millions pretty easily, and it's always fun to attack for literal millions. So there's Devilish Valet there. That one also works quite well. And then there's a new one out of Dominaria United, which I like actually a lot, is Defiler of Instinct. It's kind of similar to Witty Roastmaster because you can use it to ping your opponent to death. This one, though, it's cool because it also has some more synergy with this combo, and it kind of provides some more consistency. So this is a 4/4 with First Strike. It says, as an additional cost to cast red permanent spells, you can pay 2 life. Those spells cost red less to cast. If you paid life this way, this effect only reduces the amount of red mana you pay. So basically it turns your red mana symbols for red permanents into Phyrexian mana. Also though, whenever you cast a red permanent spell, this does 1 damage to any target. So with this ability, it basically does the same thing as Witty Roastmaster, because whenever you cast this, you're going to do a damage to something. But this is cool because this can also kind of act as like a Birgi type of effect, because with Birgi, you generate a red mana whenever you cast something, but with this, you can just reduce the red mana. So it kind of does the same thing, but a limited number of times, because you have to pay 2 life each time you want to reduce the red mana. But that can be enough to get you there sometimes with your Grinning Ignis. So this is kind of like a smaller version of the Birgi combo right here. These 2 cards do combo, it's just not an infinite number of times because you have to be paying the 2 life. So these 2 here are the infinite combo. These 3 are the way to win. Now the question is, how do we add consistency to this deck? And that's what we're going to take a look at now. Outside of your Birgi and Grinning Ignis, the card you really want to be seeing is Hazoret's Monument. This is a 3-mana artifact. It's legendary, so you can only have 1 in play at a time. It says red creature spells you cast cost a colorless less to cast, or rather a generic less to cast. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you can discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So not only does this reduce the mana, which makes it easier to combo off, This means that if you have these three in play at once, you kind of just win unless your opponent can interrupt your combo somehow, because whenever you're recasting this an infinite number of times, well, I suppose you also need a card in your hand, but if you have a card in your hand, whenever you cast this triggers, you can discard a card and then draw a card, so you would discard the card in your hand and then draw a card, and you can just do that until you find one of your win conditions right here. And when you have this out, it discounts Grinning Ignis, so that means every time you recast this, you're actually going up a mana with Birgi. Without this, you'll just be net neutral, but with these three in play, every time you cast the Grinning Ignis, you gain a mana, so you will be able to cast anything that you find off of your Hazoret's Monument when you rummage with it. And another cool card that you can play that has a similar role as Birgi and Defiler of Instinct is Runaway Steamkin right here. This is a cool one out of Guilds of Ravnica. It's a 2 mana 1/1 elemental. It says whenever you cast a red spell, if this has fewer than 3 +1/+1 counters on it, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then you can remove 3 of those counters to add 3 red. So if you have this out and you're going off with Grinning Ignis and Birgi, this can also just get you basically infinite mana. Actually, when you think about it, with these cards here, there is so much redundancy that you don't even need some of them in a lot of cases. You might not even need the Birgi for that matter if you have the right setup. Just these two cards here don't go infinite on their own because you'll run out of red mana eventually. However, with Runaway Steamkin, these three would be another infinite combo. If you can cast this enough times to get the counters on Runaway Steamkin, that can provide you with enough red to just keep on going with Grinning Ignis and Hazoret's Monument. So now these are all combo pieces and win conditions, and I'll show you some other cards that I've added to the deck just to add some more consistency. So here we've got Crash Through. This, when you have Birgi or Runaway Steamkin, it's basically just a ritual that cantrips. It's a 1 mana sorcery. It says creatures you control gain trample till end of turn. You don't care about that, but it says draw a card. So just 1 red, draw a card, help you dig through your deck and get a spell cast that can get you some red mana with these. Got to Play with Fire here. Well, 4 of these, but similar thing. It's just a red mana for an instant, which can trigger these kinds of things. It's early removal as well, so you don't just get run over by aggro decks. And also the fact that it scries can be quite relevant to help you kind of get the cards that you're looking for. In a similar vein, we've got Light Up the Stage. If you have Spectacle, this just costs 1 red, and it can get you 2 cards deeper into your library. And then this one I think is really cool is Skirk Prospector. This also is kind of just a free ritual, basically, because it costs a red. You can sack it to add a red, but then once again, if you cast it when you have these cards out, you get a red, so this can just gain you mana in that instance. Then a couple of Wily Goblins here. Once again, just to help you ramp, make sure you got enough mana to go off. It works well with Skirk Prospector as well, because it's a goblin that can be sacked, and it makes a treasure when it comes into play. Also, with this one, you could just play it for free off of Defiler of Instinct. You could play Skirk Prospector for free as well. Free, as in you're just paying life to play it instead of mana. So I thought this deck was really cool, and I wanted to share it with you today. This is a budget deck that you can play in Pioneer or on Arena. It's just a mono-colored deck. In paper, it's going to run you about $68. The most expensive card is Birgi here. You want to play all 4 of those. That one's sitting at, I don't know, between $6 and $9, depending on where you buy it. So that's pretty nice. Also, another thing I should mention about the Birgi here is that there is a backside to it. So if you draw multiple copies of it, this can actually work pretty well just casting the backside also, because one thing you can run into with this is that you can kind of run out of gas and not have enough cards to go off, because you do typically need a card in your hand to discard to Hazoret's Monument. With this one though, this Harnfell Horn of Bounty, if you cast the backside of Birgi, it's an artifact for 5 mana. It says discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You can play those cards this turn, so this can just get you card advantage if you play that. And it is actually possible to combo off on turn 3 with this deck. It's probably not going to happen, but if you draw the absolute nuts with getting a Skirk Prospector into a Runaway Steamkin, and then on turn 3 you get your 3rd land, and you can chain together enough 1-mana spells like Skirk Prospectors and whatnot. You can generate enough mana through your Runaway Steamkin to be able to cast things like Hazoret's Monument and Birgi, and then just keep going and get the actual infinite combo going on turn 3. As I mentioned earlier, I saw a green-red version of this deck, and I adapted it into the mono-red one. The green-red one would be much more consistent because it allows you to play Collected Company, which is quite a big deal because you can get 2 of your combo pieces just off of that at instant speed. And you can also play Llanowar Elves to help you ramp. That deck is going to cost a lot more because, you know, Collected Company isn't cheap, but also it's a 2-color deck, so you have to have dual lands and whatnot. And then another similar kind of deck I see sometimes is one that plays, I believe, Bard class from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, which is an enchantment that makes your legendary spells cost red-green less to cast, so you can combo out with that and legendary spells as well. But I like this one because it's cheap, it's mono-colored, and the synergy with all of these things I think is really cool. So let me know what you think of the deck. Have you run into something like this before? I'm sure there are ways to improve on this. If you have any suggestions, I'd be happy to read those. And also, if you'd like to purchase any of the cards that you see here, or any other cards for that matter, you can get those by going to face2facegames.com. They're a sponsor of the channel, and they're also the largest Magic store in Canada. If you use code 8thPlaceDave at the checkout, you can save 5% on your order. And also, I definitely encourage everyone to come join my Discord server. You can find a link to that in the video description below. And I'd also just like to take a moment to thank all of the patrons who support me on Patreon. But otherwise though, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.